Roberts Robinson Chevrolet Buick GMC presents Kevin Keatsman Has Issues. Shop, click, drive at robertsrobinson.com.
One of the reasons we love sports is the unpredictable nature of the outcomes of the games. And that's what we saw over this weekend in a pretty wild March Madness that got underway the first weekend of the tournament. There's really three big headlines for all three area schools here in the Kansas City area. Kansas getting knocked off by Arkansas, Missouri basically a no-show against Princeton, and Kansas State struggling most of the day and pounding down three-pointers at the end of the game to beat Kentucky. It was a crazy Saturday and Sunday in the NCAA tournament, and there is a lot to digest with each of these programs. Kansas State is the only team standing after they beat Kentucky 75-69. Jerome Tang would say after the game, "It's dudes." That's his quote, "It's dudes." He says, we can talk about coaching and sets and plays and stuff all day long, but, quote, "we got dudes," unquote. And indeed, Kansas State does. Marquis Nowell with a ridiculous performance, and I'm sure as the standalone game on CBS, a lot of the country saw this young guy doing what it is that he's done, channeling in so many ways Patrick Mahomes and the way he plays football with all of his no-look passes. When Marquis Nowell gets 10 assists or more, K-State wins. He got 9 in this game, but scored 27, including 8 straight free throws down the stretch to ice this thing away, scoring 11 points in a 19-9 run for Kansas State to finish this one off. I think the headline for me is, as great as Nowell was and as many highlight plays as there were, and so many people seeing him do his thing, I think the headline here for me was I didn't really recognize this version of Kansas State on Sunday because they played defensively in a way that I've not seen them play in any single game all year. There are times when Kansas State seems completely uninterested in playing defense. They just want to outscore you. They want to go up and down the floor. They want to play a fast-paced, fun, entertaining game. And they're at their best when games go like that. That wasn't going to happen against Kentucky. Keontae Johnson's a terrific player for Kansas State. Marquis Nowell's terrific for Kansas State. They were both being guarded by guys that were much bigger and longer than them and created real havoc most of the game. Kansas State was frustrated. They started 0 for 13 from 3. Their shots were contested. Kentucky has big, long athletes that were defending beautifully against K-State, and it was a rock fight. They tried real hard to get on Oscar Tshiebwe and just beat him up down low and throw numbers at him. Tshiebwe had a terrific game, 25 points, 18 rebounds. The guy's an absolute stud. Most of the rebounding was early on. There was a point with about 8 minutes to go in the first half. I said to a couple of buddies, and I think K-State was down 7 or 8 at the time. I said, well, it couldn't go much worse than this, and K-State is still in it. Kentucky didn't really put them away. I mean, K-State couldn't have been worse the first 10 or 12 minutes of that basketball game. They could not have played worse. But their defense allowed them to stay in the game. They could have been down 15 very easily if they weren't defending. And to be honest, I've heard Jerome Tang talk a lot about defense this year and say he's a defensive-minded coach and all these things. But it's just been talk. Kansas State hasn't done it. They guarded every possession. They challenged every pass, every shot. They did their very best on the boards. Not particularly great because they're not built for that. Out-rebounded 44-25. Kentucky had 19 more rebounds than Kansas State, and K-State still found a way to win. The Cats held Kentucky to 41% shooting, which was pretty good. They won the turnover battle, which K-State rarely does. K-State only had 8 turnovers. I think 4 of them were very early. 4 or 5 were in that first 10-minute stretch. And then the rest of the game, K-State just didn't turn it over. And that really is their key. There's also a remarkable stat out there about their next opponent, Michigan State, which is of all the teams left, Michigan State is the worst at forcing turnovers. They're good, and they're good defensively, but they don't force a lot of turnovers. Kansas State's bugaboo is turnovers. When they turn it over 20 times, they don't win. They turn it over 8 against Kentucky, which I thought was remarkable. So clearly the point of emphasis for Kansas State going into this game was defend every possession. Every possession matters. Every pass matters. And they really got after him defensively and take care of the basketball. And Kansas State did that. It was a remarkable finish. You kind of got the feeling watching these teams all along as they traded punches. It was a slugfest. It was a rock fight. I mean, this was a very different kind of game for Kansas State. They'd not been up against a big man like Oscar Tshiebwe all season long. They'd not seen that. This was a completely different kind of game for Kansas State, and you just felt like one of these teams was going to hit a couple of big shots down the stretch and win it, and that was going to be that, and you kind of felt it the whole way. Ish Massoud was the guy for Kansas State. 2:21 left in the game. Massoud hits a bomb three to put him up 64-62. A minute later, Keontae Johnson, who hadn't really done much the entire game. I mean, you talk about frustration. They defended Keontae Johnson like crazy in this game. He stepped up, and then he stepped back and hit a step-back three to put K-State up 67-62 with a minute 23 to go, and Marquis Nowell did the rest at the free throw line, including an inbounds play where all 5 Kansas State players were out of bounds and lined up like a bubble screen football play, a play they call Mahomes, which they shouted out on Twitter, and Mahomes shouted back at him. A pretty interesting nod to the Chiefs quarterback. It's an inbound play where you take the other 3 guys, you fake it, Keontae Johnson throws it to Marquis Nowell, who gets fouled and goes to the line. It was not an original play. Others have done it. Jerome Tang said after the game, we stole it. He didn't say we stole it from Baylor, but I think that's probably where he got it, being at Baylor all those years. But this was just a gritty, unbelievable performance by Kansas State, which, man, I didn't think most of the day they were going to win that game. I don't know how everybody else was looking at it, but it just didn't feel right. They were not scoring. They weren't getting easy baskets. It was really hard work, but it was really hard work for both teams. And in the end, Kentucky's a flawed team. They have great players and great athletes, but they're not, nor have they ever been under Calipari, the most beautifully coached team you ever saw. And they kind of buckled at the end and didn't play their best down the stretch. And after the game, they said it's been a roller coaster of a season. We had highs and lows. We heard all these comments from Kentucky, and that's the end for the Wildcats, who I think probably believed, and Vegas had them as a 3-point favorite when it tipped off, probably believed they should have won that game. They certainly believe in their program that they should be beating Kansas State in the NCAA tournament. But this is truly one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen, certainly in Kansas State history, but maybe in Kansas City area sports history, that Jerome Tang, as of last July, I think we were into July of last year, Jerome Tang had 2 basketball players. He had 2. He had Nowell and Ish Massoud that stayed over from Bruce Weber's tenure. Everybody else was gone. He kept 2 guys. They hadn't recruited anybody. He didn't have anybody in. He didn't have any freshmen coming in. He had nothing. And he went around the country and he just started cherry-picking seniors. One here, one there, and he built a roster, and you looked at it and you saw where they were from and you thought, wow, this is bad. This team was picked dead last in the Big 12. And I don't know anybody that even questioned that. I don't know anybody that, like, I was really hard on the hire. Like 19-year assistant. Nobody's ever hired him. His coaches that he hired didn't have great resumes. The players he brought in didn't really come from, they weren't really studs. You're like, what's going on here? And Jerome Tang has built something, to me anyway, first and foremost, very entertaining. All right? The man is real. He's the real deal. He really is a genuine person. He's fun. He wants his players to have fun. It's an interesting, exciting, fun brand of basketball to watch. That's number one. So Kansas State fans have a great setup with Jerome Tang as their coach. He's going to have to go do it again. I think there's 8 or 9 seniors on this team. They're all going to be gone. He's going to have to rebuild this thing through transfers again. He has said it out loud. The mission when I got here was to get old and stay old. And they'll do that through transfers. They've got some young players, highly recruited young players coming in, but it's going to be a while before they're 22. And that's kind of the game he's playing. He's playing with older players. Missouri did that the same way with Dennis Gates this year. We'll get to Missouri in a moment. He did the same sort of thing, but this is just I can't even believe it. I mean, I just cannot believe Kansas State is playing the way they're playing, that they have these 2 outstanding players and then a complementary group around them that certainly do nice things. But Marquis Nowell is turning into a darling of this tournament. They now get Michigan State next. As I mentioned, Michigan State doesn't force a lot of turnovers. I like the matchup. You are going against a Hall of Fame coach. Michigan State is the kind of team that wins through coaching. Okay, they have good players, but they don't have the athletes and studs. There's no Oscar Sheboy there. Okay, they don't have that. What they have is a Hall of Fame coach who's really good and has a few days to prepare for Kansas State, and it will be all K-State can do to win this game, I think, just simply from the X's and O's part. Michigan State's going to be a hard knockout. It's going to be a hard team to punch out, but man, what more could you want? Kansas State is the highest seed remaining in their region. It's a beautiful setup for them where they are as they're getting ready to go to New York City in Madison Square Garden, where Marquis Nowell is from. and they're the highest seed left. Purdue got punched out. Marquette got not punched out. And here we go. It's K-State, Michigan State on Thursday, and we'll see what the Wildcats have. It is just one of the most unbelievable stories ever. That it could be that bad, that moribund, that's terrible of a situation 8 months ago, and Jerome Tang has them playing the way they're playing and has them where they are. Simply remarkable. All right, KKHI is brought to you by Buck Roofing and Construction, online at rbuckroofing.com. Sleep well knowing Buck Roofing fixed the roof over your head. One simple call, and you get a free roof inspection, 913-384-2680. Whether you see ceiling spots and have a small repair, or you just need to get a time frame of, hey, when do you think this roof is going to be done, and I need a new one. A lot of times Ron will come out, they'll inspect the roof and say, you got 5 more years. Call us in 5 years. Unless something happens, might as well get that roof inspection, find out exactly what you have. Online at rbuckroofing.com or 913-384-2680. You will sleep well knowing Buck Roofing fixed the roof over your head. I also sleep well knowing North Kansas City Dental fixes the teeth in my mouth. Whether it's the crowns they've put on for me, reattaching a veneer when it broke off, all the great work that Dr. Bush does and his team. He's an award-winning dentist, and they really are tremendous. It's a fun place to go. 2 locations, north of the river at Armour and Swift, or in Westwood, 816-471-2911 to make that appointment. Your insurance covers this. Might as well get checked out every 6 months or every year. I know you don't like going to the dentist, but heck, it's fun to talk with Dr. Bush about the Chiefs. He loves talking football. He'll talk a little politics or America with you as well. nkcdental.com. Advantage Termite and Pest Control is the only pest control company I've ever used. Online at AdvantageTPC.com. They also do commercial properties as well. You have properties that you manage, or if you have a commercial building, they'd love to be your pest control company. Aaron and his team will take care of any issues you may have. They even do lawn service now. If you'd like to get the lawn care signed up for 2023, call AdvantageTPC.com at 913-768-8989. Appreciate them. Wow, where to start with the Kansas Jayhawks? A shocking loss as they controlled the game against Arkansas all day long on Saturday. Not a whole lot of reason to dissect and break down everything that happened in this game, other than the fact it was completely the opposite of what you expect to see Kansas do in the NCAA tournament. I can just say this. This is the easy headline. This is in no way, shape, or form a hot take. This isn't picking on anyone or saying anything that you're not thinking. I'm just confirming what you've already thought and what you already saw. Kansas wins that game if Bill Self is healthy. There's just no question about it. I think they put Arkansas away early in that game if Bill Self is healthy, and there is no comeback by Arkansas. We saw many things in this game that are un-KU-like. We saw a 10-second violation where they weren't even really pressing. Obviously, the made free throw at the end, but they probably weren't going to win even if Jalen Wilson misses that free throw and there's an attempted rebound at the very end. But what stands out, there's 2 things that stood out in this game that I just don't think would have happened if Bill Self was there. I think they would have found a way to get Grady Dick more involved. We've been talking about this for 2 months with Kansas. Grady Dick has to score in double digits for KU to be great. Their best games of the year were when Grady Dick played well and was really involved. He was not in this game. He scored 7 points. He was 3 out of 9 from the field and only 1 of 3 from three-pointers. Credit Arkansas. They got on him and said, we're going to guard this dude, and he's not going to beat us. Jalen Wilson had his 20. We've said many times, you can give Jalen Wilson his 20 and still beat Kansas if you keep Dick out of the game. Arkansas was able to do that. What was absolutely amazing, somehow, some way, in the second half, they put a freshman on Jalen Wilson, and Wilson went 17 minutes without a field goal. That is unthinkable, unfathomable, and I don't think either of those things happen if Bill Self is coaching this team. Now, I can't point to one thing, and there is no blame here for Norm Roberts. He is what he is. He was a head coach previously. He's been loyal to Bill Self. He's a great number 2 guy. Maybe he's a head coach again someday. I'm not saying that he's not, but you can't compare Norm Roberts to other coaches, for example. You can't really compare him to other coaches in the Big 12, SEC, whatever. When he's standing there coaching the Kansas team, as unfair as it is, the only coach you can compare him to is Bill Self. And that is terribly unfair. And what Kansas had was a roster full of good players. They had the Big 12 Player of the Year. They got good players, plenty of weapons, every ability to beat Arkansas, a team that was pretty much scatterbrained all year. They had highs and lows, all these different things going on within the Arkansas program. This is the game Kansas wins. And even though Arkansas only led for a minute 43 in this game, even though that happened, Kansas, with Bill Self on the bench, even if the game did collapse and fell apart on them, and Arkansas comes back, Kansas finds a way to win with Bill Self on the bench. Look, games aren't played on a computer screen. They're played by young men and coached by, in some cases, Hall of Fame coaches that are really great at what they do. Bill Self wins all those games. He does. And look, my wife's a huge KU fan. I mean, massive. We had people over to the house, many of them Kansas fans on Saturday watching this thing with great excitement, and they all felt the same thing after the game. They're like, you know what? We won the thing last year. We can sort of take this because we know Bill Self wasn't there. Like, it's more palatable that Bill Self wasn't coaching, and you're like, it's easy to chalk it up and say, okay, life happens. Man has heart problems. He's got 2 stents in his heart. He can't coach. And because he can't coach, we lost and we're out of this thing. That does make it easier to take, but it also creates a very tricky and sticky situation for Kansas fans now questioning what's next. The big question for Kansas isn't this tournament or even the game on Saturday. It's, where is our program? What's next? What does Bill Self do from here? And I think it's anybody's guess at this point. I think this is going to take time. I think he'll make some sort of statement here within the week that he's going to keep coaching, that he's going to focus on his health. But it's standard operating procedure. We're going to go forward. If anything happens, or if he can't coach, or if he's got a bigger medical problem than we know, my personal prediction is, if there's any change, if there's anything other than Bill Self just gets healthy and coaches, that's number one, right? That's goal number one. Bill Self gets healthy, stays head coach, coaches for 20 more years or whatever. That's number one. Second option, to me, if there is a health issue, is I believe it would be some sort of, and this would be several months down the road. I don't think they would announce this. There would be no need to announce this anytime soon. I think what they would be thinking about is some sort of a paid leave of absence. Hey, I got to go take care of this. I can't do all my day-to-day duties. Norm Roberts is going to continue as the acting head coach. That is all possible. It is all in play. It is not something that's going to be ironed down this week. I think what we'll hear from Bill Self is, I'm going to continue coaching. This is my team. I'm going to be fine. I'm looking forward to feeling better and getting healthy, and everything goes as normal. In addition to that, there is still the NCAA punishment looming. It's coming. We don't know what it will be. Does that now become a negotiation? Does Bill Self look at this and say, okay, time off would be good for me healthy-wise. Can you negotiate this thing out with the NCAA and say, instead of a suspension, I'm going to step away for X number of games? There was a lot of weird stuff happen. Remember, KU took him off the road last year, and he disappeared for about 6 weeks in the summer. And then he, self-suspension, missed those games to start the season. Did any of that have to do with his health? I think is an obvious question. Was any of the time off from recruiting and the games off earlier this year health-related? Or, the question hasn't been asked, was this a complete and utter surprise almost 2 weeks ago now in Kansas City when you got dizzy and you had chest pains and you went to the hospital for 5 days? Was it the complete and utter shock? I've never heard anything from my doctor. My blood pressure is good. Everything about me has been fine. This is completely out of nowhere. We don't know that. We don't really have the right to know that. That'll be up to Bill Self to discuss if he wants to. But I think there's a lot of moving parts here that make this a fascinating story. For Arkansas's part, winning the game, I mean, I'd say act like you've been there. This program 2 years in a row has been in the Elite Eight. They certainly didn't act like they'd been there when they beat Kansas. Head coach Eric Musselman ripping his shirt off, going all soccer. Know what they do in soccer? Rip the shirts off, go up into the stands. He's done this before. Sort of a tradition when they have big wins. But they were kind of sore winners, to be honest. A couple of the coaches had Liberty Bowl shirts on. One of them made a public remark, hey, if Kansas wants us to end their season in any other sport, just give us a call. Kansas' season has ended in football and basketball by losing to Arkansas. They were not particularly gracious winners, I didn't think. Now, you get excited. They got dudes now, as Jerome Tang says. They got dudes. Arkansas's got some dudes. They hadn't really put it all together this year, and they certainly didn't put it all together Saturday. I think they surprised. I think the reaction by Arkansas after that game, all you need to know is they surprised themselves. They didn't think they were going to pull that off. They didn't think they were about to do that. They didn't really think they were good enough to win that game, and then they did. They had every bit the look of a completely surprised outfit. Like, did we just do that? And they did. And you can't really call them sore winners, but did they celebrate a little too much? Was it over the top? Was it in any way disrespectful? There were some disrespectful things, man. I mean, Florida Atlantic against Fairleigh Dickinson on Sunday, the missed dunk with 2 seconds left. It's an 8-point game. They're letting them run out the clock, and the guy goes down and tries to dunk it. He does a windmill dunk and actually missed it. It was totally classless. There were some things in this tournament that didn't look exactly right, and one of them was Arkansas's celebration. It was a little over the top. Look, I appreciate young people getting very excited about winning. I appreciate that being an 8 seed and beating a 1 seed is a fun thing, and it's the defending national champion. But it was just, for my taste anyway, Arkansas was just a little over the top in their celebration. Missouri Tigers, I mean, I don't even know where to start here. I didn't see this coming. I think this was maybe as surprising as Kansas blowing the lead and losing a game, which just didn't look right. But you can chalk the KU loss up to Bill Self not being there. The Missouri loss, I mean, they really weren't competitive in this game. It was nothing to watch. They lose to Princeton by 15. Missouri only scores 63 points. Clearly, Princeton X and O's, and the way they defended was not something Missouri was particularly comfortable with. Blake Peters for Princeton had 5 3-pointers in the second half. This just wasn't a game. I could have said, okay, could Missouri lose 65-63 to Princeton in one of those games where it kind of bogs down and Missouri isn't real comfortable and they don't score their 80 points that they average? Yeah, I could see that. I couldn't see being down 20 or more. It was more than 20 at one point. I didn't see that coming. I don't think it was lack of effort, and I don't think it was, I mean, I guess you have to factor in lack of preparedness for not being prepared offensively to handle what Princeton was going to do to you defensively. But there were still some open looks and missed shots where the Tigers just weren't themselves. Sometimes you just play bad. Do you credit Princeton? You absolutely do. Is this tournament unbelievable and weird things happen? It certainly does. Princeton makes the Sweet 16 for the first time since 1967. I think in the last 40 years, only 2 Ivy League schools have made it. I think Cornell maybe was the other, have made the Sweet 16. So this is a big headline. I mean, Princeton beating Missouri is a big, big deal. I said it prior to these games on Friday's podcast. Whatever happens to K-State, Missouri this weekend, it's still a great year. It doesn't feel that way right now if you're a Missouri fan because this was so resounding that Princeton won so easily. Again, it would have been easier to take if you lost 65-63 in a close-fought game and a last-second shot. No, that's just kind of the way it falls sometimes. I don't know what the takeaway is from a team like Missouri that had played so well down the stretch, and they did. They played beautiful basketball down the stretch. They beat a bunch of teams. They lost to Alabama, but played well against Alabama. They looked really good in their first game. There was no buzzer beater. They went out and were the better team, and then nobody saw this coming. Just a complete egg laid by the Missouri Tigers. Look, they finished 25-10. It was Dennis Gates' first year. He knows what he's doing. Missouri's program is in great hands here. No matter what happens, even with Kansas State going forward now, no matter what happens, it's exciting to see Dennis Gates at Missouri and Jerome Tang at K-State doing the jobs they're doing in their first year. You couldn't ask for a whole lot more. Kansas State got a little more than Missouri, okay? But you couldn't really ask for it. You take it. You take it. But it's all like gravy. It's like house money as far as I'm concerned at this point. I'm just very impressed with what's happened with the turnaround at Missouri, and I think most fans are, and it's a real difficult pill to swallow. It's only been, as we're recording this podcast, a day and a half since it occurred, and it doesn't feel that way, but you have to remember the whole body of work. I don't really remember. There was 1 or 2 games that Missouri didn't play well this year. There weren't a whole lot of clunkers out there like this one. where Mizzou wasn't competitive. And I think that's what hurts the most. You scratch your head and go, how does that happen in an NCAA tournament game to go to the Sweet 16? How does Missouri lay that egg and play that poorly? How much of it was X and O's? How much of it was preparation? How much of it was effort? Was it just simply a lack of execution? Ooh, boy, that was an ugly, ugly game for the Missouri Tigers, to be sure. KKHI is brought to you by Advanced Medical Imaging. See what's inside online at medimageks.com. Heart scans are under $100. If this Bill Self news hasn't got you thinking, hey, I got to see if I'm clogged up, go get your plaque score. Find out what you got going on with your heart. Get that heart scan done. Advanced Medical Imaging. It's out of pocket. Insurance doesn't cover it. I don't know why insurance doesn't cover it. It just doesn't. But it's under $100. It only takes about 2 minutes. You don't even have to take your shirt off. It's phenomenal. They see your entire torso. Do this. Men and women, do this. Advanced Medical Imaging is online at medimageks.com. They will also get you in today or tomorrow. If you need an MRI or a CT scan, don't wait 3 weeks on your hospital. Go do this at Advanced Medical Imaging, online at medimageks.com. Cross Kitchens, crosskitchenskc.com. Family owned and operated in Belton, Mo. Tim Cross and his family, well, they got a great business. They would love to remodel your kitchen or your man cave or a bathroom. They do it all. One phone call sets up a free appointment. Tim will come out personally. You get the owner of the company and say, here's what we're thinking about doing. What does it look like? He'll design the entire thing and do a 3D rendering for you. Say, here's what it costs, and then you make the decision. No pressure. CrossKitchensKC.com. People aren't really buying and selling houses right now. We're investing in our homes. Make it just a little bit sweeter. CrossKitchensKC.com. And my friend Doug Horn over at the Horn Law Firm, who reminds you that you have a responsibility as a driver to prevent accidents from happening with ABCD. That is alert, buckled, cautious, and defensive. Doug Horn's been practicing injury law for 32 years in Kansas and Missouri, and he has seen over the last few years a terrific, unbelievable, horrific is the better word, rise in the number of really big injuries and serious crashes. So many distracted drivers out there now with their phones, mostly distracted drivers. So you have a responsibility. I'm trusting that most of you aren't on your phone when you're out there driving around, but you see people doing that. It now becomes our responsibility as the safe drivers to watch out for the kids, especially young drivers, on their phones, swerving around, doing whatever. Be safe on the roads. If you're involved in an accident and you need some help, legal representation, Doug Horn's your guy. Online at hornlaw.com. That's 816-795-7500. Okay, the big story in America this week is going to be apparently the arrest of Donald Trump on Tuesday. I just can't believe that we live in this country, that this is happening in this country. I can't believe this. Alvin Bragg is the district attorney in Manhattan, New York, USA. He has previously had lawsuits against the Trump Foundation, these other things that he's done. This is all political. He's going to try to take a victory lap for what? Getting a mugshot and fingerprinting Donald Trump? Is that the goal here? Trump puts out on social media over the weekend he expects to be arrested on Tuesday. For what? Some sort of a misdemeanor, falsifying business records, a misdemeanor that the statute of limitations is expired on. This is insane. I'd say I'm proud of Republicans for not doing this stuff, but apparently we're going to have to start doing this stuff. Like there was a time that some DA somewhere, if they wanted to, could have brought charges against Hillary Clinton and done the same thing. There's plenty out there. This is just a joke. This pertains to Stormy Daniels, the porn star from years. It's so discredited. Like her lawyer Avenatti's in jail. She's disappeared. This is so far ago, years and years ago. And he had a guy named Michael Cohen working for him. Apparently Cohen made some payments to her, and they're trying to implicate Trump as falsifying records, business records, and that's what the claim is here. Most legal experts say this will be a misdemeanor, that they're going to try to twist into a felony somehow, but the statute of limitations is expired. This is really bad. I don't think anybody else is saying this. This is what Volodymyr Zelensky does in Ukraine. Okay, this is what you do in dictatorships, banana republics. This is what you do. You jail your political opponents. Volodymyr Zelensky has jailed 5 or 6 political opponents in Ukraine. He's arrested them and jailed them and locked them up so they can't run, I'm using air quotes, run in an election against him. There's no free and fair elections in Ukraine. And there is one party in America that does not want free and fair elections here. They want them rigged every time. They want to jail their opponents. That's all they do. It's one witch hunt after another against Donald Trump. Elon Musk and others are saying if they arrest Trump, you might as well just check the box. Trump's going to be your president. That this is going to rally people around him, that people are going to turn on the Democrats, that this is wrong, that there's still enough good people in America, maybe even that voted for Joe Biden, that would say, that's wrong. That's taking politics too far. He didn't do that. This shouldn't be happening. I can't predict it. I don't think this helps Trump. A lot of people think, well, okay, this is just going to vault him over the top, and you might as well hand the thing to Trump. I think it may win him the primary. I think it's going to be very hard to beat in a primary because the people that love Trump love him like they've never loved a politician in their life. It's remarkable. But I can't believe this is happening. I mean, this is the prosecutor. This is Alvin Bragg. Do you guys remember the bodega owner? He was the owner of a bodega in New York. A bodega is we call them Quick Trip around here. They're just little stores in New York where you can, convenience stores. And the bodega owner, I think he was from Dominican Republic, or that's his heritage anyway. And the guy comes behind the counter and he's robbing him. And dude grabs a knife and stabs the guy who's robbing him and drops him. I think that guy died. I could be wrong. He may have survived. I think he died. Alvin Bragg, this district attorney, is the guy who went and arrested the bodega owner and tried to prosecute him and lock him up for defending himself against an intruder, robbing him by stabbing the guy, and I think killing him. I think the young man died that he stabbed. Alvin Bragg wanted to lock up the bodega owner. Now, public outrage was just everywhere on this. Like, you can't, this is America. That man has a right to defend himself against a thug in there ripping him off in his bodega. And the charges were eventually dropped. But they locked this guy up. I mean, he was in jail for several days. Couldn't spring his bond, that was too high. It is unbelievable what some of these crazy Democrats do when they become a district attorney. I can't say judge, although there's some dirty judges out there too. But this DA is out of control. He has all his priorities wrong. It is all political. I assume he wants to, at some point, run and try to become governor of New York or mayor of New York City or wherever it may be. And this is what he's doing. He's going to put up on his mantle, I'm the guy that arrested Trump. And then he's going to try to either run on that or get a job at CNN or write a book or make money off this. That's all this is. I don't think we're at a crossroads in America where the Democrats are going to take over as one party and one party rule by jailing everyone. I don't think we're going to allow that. I don't think they're going to jail Trump. The question is, what does this look like on Tuesday? What actually happens? Is there a mugshot? Do they fingerprint him? How far does this thing go? I'm shocked. I just can't even believe it. I just can't believe it. I'm so embarrassed. Really, that's what I'm feeling, is embarrassment for the United States. I'm embarrassed for our country. This will be global news. The rest of the world has to be laughing, especially China and Russia. Have to be looking at this country and laughing, just laughing. What is going on with these crazy people in that country? How misguided we are. We have lost our way, and it really is one party doing that. I'm just completely and utterly embarrassed that this DA is doing this. And it is clearly all political. That's all this is. It is just an embarrassing time for the United States of America. Well, it is a anniversary date, March 20th today, 1854, in Ripon, Wisconsin. The Republican Party was formed. 1854 on March 20th. There was a piece of legislation that passed in D.C. called the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. It overrode the Missouri Compromise. Missouri Compromise was an anti-slavery bill. The Kansas-Nebraska Act overrode that and created an opportunity for slavery to expand westward. Well, Democrats at that time were pushing for all that. They wanted more slavery. The Democrats were pushing slavery. But there was a wing of the Democrats that called themselves Free Democrats. They also called themselves Free Whigs. There was a Whig party at the time, W-H-I-G, I think is how you spell it, right? So the Free Democrats broke off, and in Ripon, Wisconsin, on March 20th, 1854, they formed the Republican Party. 2 years later, they nominated John Fremont to run for president. John Fremont did not win. Fremont was a westward expansion explorer type guy, and he became their party's nominee in 1856 and lost. But 4 years later, Republican nominee Abraham Lincoln would win the White House and forever change American history. I mean, this should be like, they should be pushing for this to be a national holiday. Like Republican Party Day was the day a political party was formed with the distinct mission of ending slavery. Nobody in this country knows that. Nobody. The Republican Party is like the worst marketing firm in America. They have no idea how to market this party and change the narrative and educate people. I mean, this should be like, Republicans should do a walk every year around the Capitol or something, some sort of march. The elected officials, or moment of silence or something, that this was the day our party formed to end slavery. And that's it. Just keep repeating it over and over and over. Every year, March 20th, this is the day we formed our party to end slavery. That should be the marketing. This is the date that we broke off from the Democrats, formed our own party with the main reason, not the sole reason, but the main reason to abolish slavery and stop the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. Doesn't seem like it'd be that hard. Doesn't seem like it'd be that hard to do that. All right, before our final, I want to thank you for visiting Jocelyn's Jewelry. I got a text from Gary a couple weeks ago, said many of you have come in and mentioned the podcast. We love that. When it's time to get something sparkly for her, guys, Jocelyn's Jewelry is the only place to go. 95th and Antioch, family-owned and operated, third generation of family working there at Jocelyn's Jewelry now. What a great family they are. What a great way to do business. Their sales reps are non-commissioned. They're so helpful. They'll clean your jewelry while you're shopping. It's just a really cool place. 95th and Antioch, online at joslinsjewelry.com. Back 9 Development, online at back9development.com. TJ Velkanskis is currently building 3 custom homes in the Kansas City area. Maybe you've got some land or you've seen a subdivision where you'd like to build, and he's got something perfect for you. Only one way to find out. Call TJ and ask him. 785-236-0161. If you've got a piece of property you're thinking about developing commercially, we've mentioned this. If you're looking downtown because you think the Royals are going to be building somewhere down there and you want to get involved in some sort of a business venture, Back 9 Development can bring it all together for you. TJ's great at what he does. Again, online, back9development.com. And, of course, Window World, simply the best for less. The official windows of the Kansas City Chiefs. J.D. Power and Associates award-winning customer satisfaction award again. They won that again. These are American-made windows, low prices, lifetime warranty, 0% financing available. There's nothing else to know. You need to replace one window, a dozen windows, one side of your house, your entire house. Window World can do any job. 816-799-0820. Online at windowskansascity.com. We appreciate their support for so many years. John Gillette and his team are terrific. All right, our final on this Monday is an interesting little story that probably went under the radar and you didn't know about this week. And that is the Chiefs have made a lot of changes with the coaching staff. You know, Bieniemy's gone. Nagy's been elevated offensive coordinator. That gained the headlines. Andy said goodbye to a couple other coaches. He's brought some new people in. He's making some changes. It's what you do. I'm not questioning any of that, but little did we know, Andy Reid has hired another one of his sons to work for him. Spencer Reid is the youngest of 5 Reid children, and had been assistant strength and conditioning coach at Brigham Young University. And he is now going to be assistant strength and conditioning coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. Spencer Reed becomes, I believe, his third son to work for him between Philadelphia and Kansas City. Congratulations, I guess, to Spencer Reed. This guy's been coaching. He's been doing this. He worked at BYU, Colorado State, BC. He was with the head coach at BYU for a while. And this is not some giant position, okay? But Andy Reid does like having his family around him and coaching for him. I just thought it was. I have no commentary. I'm fine with the hire. There's nothing here to not like. There's nothing, to my knowledge, in this young man's background that says, this is some sort of bailout that they're trying to help him. It looks like he's been gainfully employed and doing his thing as his assistant strength and conditioning coach for a while. So good for him. Spencer Reed. Yes, indeed. That is Andy Reid's youngest of 5 children on the staff for your Kansas City Chiefs. All right, if you want to sign up and become a patron, we're going to be doing some patron podcasts this week. Certainly the Trump news comes down. That's going to be a big thing. There will be some this is going to be a big, big week. Not necessarily in sports with Kansas and Missouri out. It's a big week for Kansas State. We'll be covering that every step of the way. But it's pretty obvious there's going to be a lot of news this week. We've got Kim Jong-un rattling sabers in North Korea about nukes and things like that. So there'll be some bonus podcasts, some afternoon podcasts. We put them up for the patrons. If you'd like to join, go to kkhasissues.com. It's easier on your computer than on your phone. It only takes about 3 minutes to sign up. $5 a month. You get the bonus podcasts and the newsletter every weekend. kkhasissues.com. Just click on Become a Patron. If not, hit the like, follow, or subscribe button. That's free. You'll get the notification every time you listen. Or tell your friends about it. Have them, if you could, please help us out by hitting that like, follow, or subscribe button. We are close to 27,000 subscribers now to KKHI. We are so blessed to have such a big audience for this podcast. I can't thank you enough for joining us every time you get a chance at KKHI.
Thanks for listening to Kevin Keatsman Has Issues, presented by Roberts Robinson Chevrolet Buick GMC. To get exclusive patrons-only podcasts, receive a weekly newsletter, and attend in-person patrons-only parties, visit kkhasissues.com and become a patron today. This has been a production of Crooked Tail Media Incorporated.